Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome.
Hello.
Um, we're just going to kill a minute while folks roll in. It looks like people are showing up, so welcome aboard. And maybe we'll get a couple of quick survey questions in. We were wondering what models people are using and where you use them. I don't know, you could tell us both. Like, for instance, if you're using Anthropic, you might use Claude Code, Claude Desktop, Claude on the web, whatever. But
Yeah, what is home base for AI for you? And if you have
yes.
many, you can list out many. But yeah, we're kind of curious to see. I mean, talking to people, seems like a lot of people in the Bay Area are on Cloud Code all day, every day. Codex is kind of rising now.
But we are just making sure the chat works. So basically, type something in the chat. If you don't want to tell us what model you're using or whatever, then at least tell us where you're from or say hello. Then the other bit of housekeeping, perhaps, is that we do have the chat. All right, the chat's working. Thank you for jumping in there.
We got someone
And
from Montreal. Are they watching the game today? So we're entering the second round of the NHL playoffs today. And I'm also from Montreal.
nice. So, yeah, let's go ahead and jump into this. Thanks for joining us. Today, we wanted to introduce something we've been very eager to show everybody. It's Preset's new chatbot. Last time we met, we showed you the MCP services that we've built and launched, and that's getting a lot of great feedback. So today is the next great thing. We'll do some quick little introductions. I'm Evan Rusackas. You probably see me on GitHub. I'm the developer relations and community guy. So you see me around a lot, probably. I'll hand it to Max.
Yeah, Max, I'm a founder at Preset. I started Apache Superset like more than 10 years ago. I looked up this morning, I was trying to get like a timestamp. So I looked at the first commit for Superset, and I believe it was like more than 10 years ago at this point. So been really like my personal mission has been to get open source to take over, the entire analytics data consumption layer. So we're pushing hard on that.
Hi, I'm Sophie. I'm a product manager here at Preset.
I'm Elizabeth. I'm Director of Engineering and also PMC for Superset.
And we have Amin with us too, who's not on the slide, but you should introduce yourself too. Amin's been doing a lot of the work in the back end and around the MCP.
Hey everyone, I'm Amin and I'm a platform engineer at Preset.
Right on. Oh, and I forgot to mention one thing. Today's my seventh anniversary at Preset, so it's officially 4 minutes and 7 years at Preset. Uh, all right. So anyway, without further ado, we wanted to introduce you today to Preset Chatbot. So this is the new interactive way in the age of AI to interact with your business intelligence and analytics and learn about your data and build stuff with your AI Copilot. So we're excited to show you all about the features and how this thing works and give you a demo. Uh, and yeah, we'll go into.
Yeah, I wanted to. So this slide is to get a little bit of perspective around like what we've been doing around AI and where this fits in. So we spoke about MCP. So about a month ago, we did a webinar. We introduced Preset Superset MCP, which is awesome. It allows you to connect from whatever your own base is, whether it's Cloud Code, Codex, whatever agentic tool you might use. You can connect to MCP. You can build your own agents that can connect to Preset through MCP. So really powerful stuff. Then we have the end product chatbot that we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to go quickly through this, but the main thing with the chatbot is that it's super available, right? So if you have access to preset, then you switch it on. Everyone in your organization can use the chatbot. So zero config, super convenient. The chatbot is context aware, so it knows which part of the app you're in, what chart you're looking at, what might be wrong with a SQL query you just ran in SQL Lab. So, being in the context of the app's got a lot of advantages we're going to show today. And then we also have the SUP CLI. So SUP is a rich CLI that connects to preset and to superset and allows you to do certain things that you can't really do in the UI. One of these things is being able to manage and synchronize assets as code. So you can do CI automation. So if you want to synchronize some assets from your production instance to a sandbox instance to run some tests or whatever you might want to do around backing up assets, synchronizing assets, generating assets as code, Those are all things that you can do in SUP. So that's a super powerful thing, but that's kind of segmented on the side. Agents have done very well with MCP. Like that's kind of the native tooling or the native way to expose toolings for agent. But agents are really good with CLIs too. So you wrap the CLI in a skill, and all of a sudden your agent can do all sorts of things.
Yep. And we've done live demos of both of those before. So there will be a few QR codes. Snag a screenshot if you want to check those out. If you haven't been playing with MCP already, you should. A lot of tools provide these now, and it's a really exciting universe to explore. If you haven't heard of MCP and what it is, it's a protocol for your LLMs to connect with different services and tools. You can think of it kind of like an API that the model can actually access directly to just do work in any given piece of software. A lot of tools have them, and when you pile them up, they're really effective together. But last time we talked about Superset and Preset's MCP tools and all it does to allow you to build Superset and Preset assets like charts and dashboards and data sets and things. So it's really this kind of connect anything to anything protocol for AI to use your software like you would. It's worth saying that a lot of tools do have these MCP services, and a lot of them are in the data space. Various databases, semantic layers, and things like that are providing such tools, and people are using them, and they're great. We use them too. But it's really worth saying that what's exciting about what we're presenting today is that dashboards and charts provide a lot of extra context. So we don't just have an LLM looking at what's in your table and making assumptions of how to build a query and dig stuff up from there. If you had a semantic layer, that adds an extra layer, which is fantastic. But when you start building charts and dashboards, that context around what's important gives a lot of extra leverage and pointers to the agent to say, okay, what are the metrics that you care about? And what are the trends we're already aware of? And what are the things I can kind of highlight and double click on as an agent working for you?
Yeah, so the magic really happens right when you provide the right context, the right tools, the right skills to an agent. But like just connecting your agent to your preset instance, it will know how you think about data, metrics definition, the data sets that are used and reliable. So you can kind of think of your preset workspace as a rich context layer, right, about everything data that you do inside your organizations. And we see agents leveraging that super smartly, which is great.
Yeah, and Elizabeth was kind enough to provide this example where there's an annotation layer built in Superset that had a little threshold line, and that wouldn't be part of your data sitting in your data warehouse at all, really. It's something you built in the analytical tool, and you can ask questions about like when did something go above or below the line? How often does it go across some thresholds? So there's, again, dashboard specific context, even when you're filtering things like that. And the other main benefit of this is that it really furthers our mission to democratize access to data. So it used to be that if you wanted to get a chart built, you would have to go to the data team and say, hey, can you model this data for me and set it up in some scalable way so I can finally build a chart around it and answer this question on a dashboard. But now you don't have to know how to write SQL because this chatbot we're introducing can do that for you. So you can ask questions about your data, ask questions about the dashboard. You can riff and iterate on the assets that are there, and basically any business user in any department of your org can now take advantage.
So everyone's got superpowers now in some ways, maybe, right? Like things that you could maybe not do yourself or didn't make sense to spend the time doing. Like it's all things that you can do super easily now by just asking an agent at your fingertips.
Yeah. So is that power dangerous? I guess these next couple of slides let you answer that.
Yeah, so maybe just thinking about perspective on this, I would say over the past year or two, I think we've all been building trust with agents, right? We're trying to push the boundaries or test the boundaries of what the agents can do and can't do, and I think that's a very active thing for all of us to kind of map out what agents can do reliably. But in terms of like trusting the agents, that's in the context of the preset chatbot. The first thing to know is that the agent uses the data access layer, right? So it will run SQL or will access objects with the same permission level as you do. So it respects RBAC, role level security, column restrictions. So no security hold, right? The agent only can do what the user can do. It does not tend to hallucinate data, though it's not something that we can necessarily guarantee. But the agent is good at running SQL, figuring out your data, exposing data that is true, and exposing your data warehouse or your database. It's been thoroughly tested. So one thing that we've built on, and a big part of building an AI product, is building an eval suite, right? So if you're familiar with unit tests and integration tests that we do in software, for everything agentic at Preset, we try to cover as much of the use cases and questions that people might ask with suites of evals that we run in continuous integration. So done a lot of work to validate that not only the agents are right, but that there's no regression, right? So if we add new tools, we change any of the AI tooling on our side, like we systematically make sure that the agents are accurate. And then one more thing on mutations and deleting data. So we made sure in this first phase that the agents cannot delete data, because we've read probably the same news articles that you've seen where there's been disasters of agents doing things they shouldn't be doing. So we don't expose delete tool. And maybe on the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about how we try to steer away from mutation and sprawl. So one potential issue with using agents is that they might go super kind of create object happy and start creating tons of charts and dashboards that you might not need in the future. So in our system prompt, we steer the agent towards creating these ephemeral previews. So instead of creating a new chart and saving it and then showing it to you, it will create a temporary chart you can look at, and then you decide whether you want to save it, add to a dashboard, or if you want to update the definition of a chart. But typically, agents will steer away from mutating objects and creating objects unless they are told to. One thing to know at a high level is that these tools are probabilistic. I think we've all learned that the good way and the hard way over the past year. But agents, can infer things incorrectly, and sometimes, can happen if you have data set that are misnamed, mislabeled, confusing column names, right? It might do some inference, or it might build on some assumptions that are not right. So always good to, the same way that if you commission some data analysis from an analyst, or if you do your own analysis, you got to be critical of what you're looking at. So use your best judgment, especially the more important maybe the business decision or the claim that you're going to take, the more important it is to kind of validate what you're looking at. So rigor is still needed. It doesn't allow you to YOLO and trust everything.
Maybe I could say one thing on this point too, is that our chatbot is built on MCP rather than an API. So the MCP is built just for agents. So it's built security first, if you want to think of it that way, rather than an API, which is more open, right? So you can, by using the chatbot, you're using MCP, which is security first, security minded for your agents.
Yeah. And in case you are worried about assets being mutated, versioning is coming soon. So Sophie and Elizabeth, we're excited to show that demo when the day comes.
That's right.
Stay tuned,
also,
everybody.
I did mention that there was a bullet on ownership too, but the agent has the same access level as the user does. So that means that you wouldn't be able to mutate someone else's object. So ownership boundaries are respected.
Before we get into the live demo, can I chime in with a reminder? If you have any questions, please put it in the Q&A tab, not the chat tab, so that we can see them and answer them in a way that everyone can see more easily. So if you don't see that Q&A tab in your Zoom controls, click on the 3 dots for more, and it should be in there.
Yep, and please do ask questions. We'll get to as many as we can. when they're opportunistic.
Are
So
there
here
any questions that are accumulating we want to tackle before demo, or let's get into demo? That might spark a
really,
lot of
yeah,
questions.
let's this. I think this is we're going to do a little two-part act. I'll show some of the stuff that, are sort of common tasks and requests, and then Max is going to get a little fancier with it. So this is our chatbot friend down in the corner here with an example dashboard for video game sales that many of you have probably seen many times before. So here it is. You can see your prior sessions that you've had in the past and asked, and you can go refer to those as you need to. But right now, when you pop it up, we can just ask a few different questions. So I'll start by saying, give me a summary of the insights found on this dashboard that are interesting. All right, I've got my little text to or speech to text tool turned on, so you won't have to watch me fumble at typing.
Oh yeah, and Evan wrote an open source competitor to Whisper too. If you want to look at it, maybe we should share the link. But
Oh yeah,
text.
I'll dig up the link later if you want to not have your voice hit the internet and go to some service, then I've got the thing for you. So here we go. It's spitting out a bunch of stuff, telling you all the key takeaways from the dashboard. So, if you just want to, especially if you have a long dashboard with potentially hundreds of charts on it, this can be really great to kind of tell me what are the highlights. Uh, so there's the explanatory stuff. Now I can say something like, let's take a closer look at the data set and suggest some charts to learn even more. What should we build together? All right.
You can pop open to the reasoning for people that are curious about what's happening behind the curtain too. That can be interesting too.
It's doing that thing like so many of these chats do, where you got to wait a little bit before you can scroll up smoothly. All right. So yeah, the reasoning it went into. So it does this analyzing request, processing. These are the MCP tools that explicitly shows you what it leverages to do what it needs to do. And you can even look at all the gory details of it in JSON form. So let's see, what did it suggest? Let's build one of these. What do we want to build? I'm
And
curious
people
about,
can suggest questions too, but like I know
yeah, if you have
one question I had was like, I was kind of a gamer in the mid 90s. Like what were some of the most popular games at the time, maybe, or
do you want to go by publisher or by title or by year or
title? I don't know.
yeah, let's see. What was your favorite platform?
Probably Super Nintendo mid 90s.
Okay. Let's see. What were some of the most popular games on Super Nintendo?
When?
Yes.
No. Oh,
Oh, oh yeah, sorry, I should have put the year range in there.
I mean, it will cover the period during which, Super Nintendo was sold, so should work.
The glory days. Okay, so this is actually the MCP here generates SQL and then executes SQL in the background, again, using your access permissions and everything. So it's basically like you wrote the SQL and fired it off. So it looks like Super Mario World was the number one thing. And we can say, let's build a bar chart of how Super Mario World performed in terms of sales in different regions.
I want to go full screen. So there's two modes for the chatbot. There's kind of the unintrusive
Yeah.
version and the bigger when you have data tables, you probably need a little bit more real estate here. Then if you look at the reasoning, it's probably figuring out some SQL and looking at the data set, the columns.
And there we go. It was big in North America,
It was bundled probably. That might be why.
probably. So maybe we'll build one more, but you could do explain chart or open an explorer. Let's just click the button real quick. So if I open an explorer, then now you've got the full thing here, and you can fiddle with any little funny artifacts like an access label or whatever that doesn't go the way you want it to, or if maybe I didn't want horizontal, I'd rather go vertical. So you can fiddle with all the knobs once you're there, and it's still in your chat. So you can say explain chart.
I do a dashboard. I think there's like a little more drop down. So those are things that if you're using your own, you're in Cloud Code and you're using MCP, you might not have these little, conveniences of the little triggers, little button showing your chart inline inside your session and things like that.
Yeah. So I could
So
build one more chart if you want, or we can move on.
we
Throw it
have,
in a dashboard, add it to the dashboard. There's some of the common workflow. There's all sorts of things you could do. You could be like, show me the SQL. There's so much stuff you can do from here.
Yeah.
we have a question that I think we're going to see a lot, which is how to add more context to your charts. In the future, we will allow you to add maybe some files to give context globally, but I will say as far as context, your charts and your dashboards alone are going to be providing a lot of context to the agent, on top of what you would use if you were accessing your database directly, let's say. Your data sets, definitely descriptions, anything that you can do to add context there, as well as semantic layers if you use them. All of these are going to be adding a lot of great context to the agent to get more accurate results.
Yeah, tons of vectors there, right? Like, you look at every object in Superset as a description field. So you can add description as markdown for each chart, each data set, each column, each metric, and then the agent will discover easily everything that's in there. Something that would be interesting too, and I believe that the MCP might be able to do that today, which is enriching your chart with more metadata using AI, right? So you could say, create a chart or look at some of the top dashboard, the top data set, and make sure that all the descriptions are filled in properly. So you can work with an agent on enriching your context and then publishing it inside the preset database or metadata.
Yeah. So let's see, I could build another chart, or we can have it execute a query, or I could just hand over the mic to you, Max, if you want to.
Yeah, I can take over. I'm gonna do things that are complementary or maybe slightly different use cases. I'll make sure that my stuff is all open.
I didn't demo the save to dash thing you mentioned, but it does that. You could just say save this to the dashboard and it adds it. And
yeah, there was a little
does
trigger
exactly
to. All right, so here's what I'm gonna do. So first, I'm gonna ask this. Can you explain what you can and can't do as a preset chatbot at a fairly high level? So what I want to show here is just that like the agent is extremely self-aware, right? It knows what it can and can't do. That's pretty important. So just like out of system prompt and context here, it shows me everything that it knows it can do and what it can't do. So if you ask it for a cookie recipe, it won't do it. But for everything related to charts, dashboard, dataset, SQL, workspace, it can help with. So now I'm going to say, I'm doing a live demo right now, so I'm curious if you can look into all the data sets that exist in this workspace, and maybe let's try to zero in on a data set we might want to do some deeper analytics or analysis into. So here, I'm suspecting the agent's going to call, the list data set tool, might fetch context from other places. Let's see, list data set, calling once. I think it's going to call twice because it's paging. Oh no, it's probably getting the full results here. But one thing that we've done when we design for MCP, when we do the API design for MCP, those APIs are slightly different from your normal traditional APIs, right? Like you don't want to blow up your context or dump, if you have a million charts, dump a million charts. So you got to do pagination and really think about what we expose and prevent, context blow up. So that's all work we've been doing behind the scene. So there's a ton of Slack tables, use cases. So here, giving me a pretty good summary. I love this data set. I think we should go for this one. So I'll ask the agent to do some profiling. So let's work with the World Bank Health data set, but I'm curious to really understand what's in this data set before we start working with it. So what I'd like for you to do is to look at all the different dimensions, get some sample data, do some count distance, and then maybe let's identify a handful of metrics that are important in the data set and then profile them, like do min, max, average, standard deviation, median, this sort of thing, so we know what we're working with. So here, I think like a good workflow or something common is like you have a new data set or you want to work with a data set and go from data set to dashboard. So a good place to start is to do some profiling. This might take a little bit more time. So I'm expecting that behind the scene, the agent's going to run a set of SQL queries to get these, to profile the data. Let me open that up. We can see what's happening. So it's getting the dataset info, which will provide, the columns and all sorts of metadata, and then it will run some SQL, like getting some more information. It's doing this in parallel, so our RNS will try to parallelize work where it can. So now we get tons of information about the World Health Bank data, which is really interesting. I'm not quite sure what I want to do, but this is a really great data set to do correlation type analysis. This one seems really interesting to me. Life expectancy, that's the birth rate versus literacy. It's kind of the premise for the Idiocracy movie, if you're familiar with it. So maybe I'll go in that direction. So already it's suggesting some good stuff. I could push further in terms of like, what are some more interesting correlation we can do. But hey, I'm interested in doing something related to the movie Idiocracy. Can you make a scatter plot that looks at the correlation between fertility rate and literacy rate around the world? And then the last prompt, I might pre-prompt the last prompt. So while this is working, I'm going to ask the next thing, which is more around the idea of like dashboard design. So often you might want to create a new dashboard from a data set, and you're like, okay, what is most relevant? What should we show here? So it looks like there might be a filter so I can ask like, no data is showing. I'm not sure. Maybe you applied a filter that we should not have applied. Let's try to fix that. So maybe we remove filters. So I'm guessing I could go look at the detail. I mean, it's pretty easy to, I can click on the chart and I could go see what filter that it applied was wrong, but it's pretty good at recovery. So it should recover right away. Otherwise, it means that the demo gods are not with us today. Well, here it is. All right, so we're plotting a bunch of data from around the world, so plotting countries and look at correlation. So where there is higher literacy, there is lower or higher fertility. All right, so the last thing I wanted to show is I'm thinking about designing an awesome dashboard on this data set. So I'm curious if you can help as to designing the dashboard. So how should we structure the dashboard? What are some of the tabs we might want to show? What should show on the main tab? So help me structure a highly relevant dashboard on top of this data set. So that's your, dashboard designer type skill set, right? So the model should be really good. While this gets prepared, like something that's really interesting too is that the agent has access to all of your data and can build awesome visualizations, but also knows about the world, right? So about the Nintendo use case, you can ask question about like, hey, what was happening in Japan at this point in time, and why do you think that this game was more popular than this other game? And it might be able to understand, things like, oh, this product was bundled with a console or something like that. So you can kind of push much deeper here.
And I didn't demo it because I didn't want to just have everybody watching it chew on stuff for a while. But if it suggests 3 charts or something, then you can actually have it build all of those and add them to the dashboard all at once. That works. You can also, since it can write and execute SQL on your behalf, you can have it kind of create synthetic data if you need to do that, just to fiddle with the chart. Say, hey, build me a data set that looks roughly like, whatever, name the thing you're looking for. It's really good at writing SQL.
Yeah, so a lot of the props goes to the models. Like the models are just getting awesome, though they have trouble formatting text properly in some cases. But this is pretty cool, right? Like the agent is doing a mock-up as text here, and I could, take that as a basis, do some iteration on my high-level design plan, and then, work with the agent at actually delivering this exact dashboard here.
Okay, so thanks for taking the quick tour. So Max, you want to tell us about what all this unlocks? I think you covered some of this, but
Yeah, I covered some of this in the demo, but we've been amazed by the model and just like what happens when you give this integration. So we've been surprised in many ways of what the agent can do, and then as we push the boundaries, we found some use cases. But data profiling I showed, inventorize. So there's something in the system prompt that pushes the agent to look at what's existing prior to like creating new objects. So if you can do deep research into your workspace to find a dashboard that maybe someone created 3 months ago or 2 years ago. So agent's really good at like navigating your workspace. So good way to find assets. Dataset to dashboard I spoke about. So really your agent can help you to go from a brand or creating the data set to bring that to dashboard and assist you from like 0 to pretty much all the way. Root cause analysis, so those more intricate type questions. So often you'll see like a dip or a spike or a change in trend in your data set, and you want to understand the dimensionality of that, right? Like what, sales are going up, like which country it's coming from or which dimension member. This might explain, what this growth is about. So agent will run a ton of SQL, will visualize things for you. So super cool type family of use cases. Similarly, with anomaly detection, right? So if you favorited a bunch of dashboard that you look at on a weekly basis to look if anything has changed or anything needs your attention, you can just ask your agent. You can say like, is there any important anomalies on any of my favorited dashboard over the past month that we should look into? And the agent will go, this is going to burn more tokens, like this is definitely going to take more time, burn more tokens, but you set it in the background and you go do something else, and then maybe you don't need to look at all of your dashboard every week anymore, right? So tons of things. I think we're still discovering things that it can do, like these emerging capabilities, and definitely like as we think offer complete the set of tools, right? For instance, like currently we don't support alerts and report. That's on the roadmap, but you could easily say like, oh, we found this anomaly. Let's set up, an alert so that if this happens again, I get an alert on Slack, for instance.
Mhm. And I think one of the best things this all unlocks is accessibility. So it used to be that you kind of had to have a data team with a, significant enough data warehouse that it was worth investing in, analytics and building all of your data sets and writing all of your SQL so you can build visualizations. But with this kind of tooling in this age, I guess you could say anyone can use this stuff now. So it really unlocks not just handing over the keys to everybody in your org, but also opening up to a whole bunch of different use cases. So pretty much everyone has data, whatever industry you're in, whatever role you play in your org, there's probably some kind of data storytelling you want to do around your marketing, your sales, your inventory, your anything. So this, should empower a lot more people to investigate and improve their workflows and report and tell you how your business is doing, whatever scale it is and whatever industry it is. So, think about what it is you want to do, even in your home life. I mean, I've got my home automation stuff going on, and I've got dashboards around, my own irrigation and everything else. So,
Yeah, like I've been working in data for like more than 20 years now, and the holy grail's always been self-serviceability, right? And that this is like such a huge step for
mhm.
self-serviceability. Like anyone can come, provided you have the data, organized somewhere and make sense of it.
Yeah, or even if you do know SQL, like I know how to write SQL, but when I was doing my marketing stuff here at Preset, I've got the top of funnel metric. There's a bunch of stuff in Google Analytics, Google Ads. There's all of our stuff in our CRM, and now we're able to query things against each other, do all the really intricate joins, and kind of get our conversion rates all the way across our funnel and see how we're doing as a business in terms of growth. And the SQL gets pretty hairy. I would have had a hard time writing it by hand, but the chatbot was able to build a lot of that for me very quickly. So it really is an accelerator, even if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, one intuition around like all this AI type features is that I can do my work much faster than I used to. So that's super positive. But there's also like the use case of there's a lot of things that didn't make sense to do before that now so easy to do that it's worth doing too. So it opens all sorts of new use cases.
Right. And we should talk about those new doors that are being opened. I get the question a lot at conferences and things of like, oh, I'm already using Claude Code or VS Code or whatever with AI enabled, and it's able to whip up a line chart or a bar chart for me. And, that's great. I think the ad hoc exploration of data is incredibly valuable. And what's missing from a lot of people's workflows when they're living that way, though, is that they go and get their question answered to some degree of satisfaction, and then they have an asset that they can't share. So, you don't want that valuable insight that you find locked away in your corner. You still have a responsibility to your business, I would say, to share what you've learned, not just for the sake of sharing it, but to have that historical frame of reference that you can revisit month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year, and kind of track things. So it builds institutional knowledge to have that domain of information available to everyone. So, and also once it's there, when you create that chart and put it on a dashboard, then everybody else can not just use it as a reference point, but also use it as a jumping off point. So like Max builds a lot of charts here at Preset that he already figured out where stuff lives in the data warehouse and what the right metric is to care about. So I can actually just very quickly iterate on what he's built to kind of dive in deeper and answer my own question for my own dashboard.
Yeah, the trend that I think is interesting around, like the claim that dashboards are dying. So I do think that we need a shared frame of reference. So I think we still need, like a CEO dashboard, a marketing dashboard, a sales dashboard that people understand and align as to like the metrics that you track as a business. But a trend that is true that I probably identified like 10 years ago is the life cycle of dashboards is getting shorter, right? I think like it's common now to create dashboards that are highly relevant for a day or for a week or for a month. So I think we see the pace accelerating in terms of like it's possible to create more dashboard, but I still think you really need a shared frame of reference for the team.
Yep. And it's also worth highlighting slightly what might be a counterpoint to that the chatbot enables you to have a surface that's saved where you have these chat sessions. And when you ask it to create a chart, like you saw, it renders it right there in the chat view, and it's exploratory. It renders it for you, but it does not persist it until you tell it to. So you can create all of these charts very ad hoc in a conversational way, but you don't have to save them and clutter up the list of charts for everybody else that's on your team. You can go back to your chat history at any time and revisit those charts if you do want to persist them later. So you still have your own little corner where you can do work very ad hoc and come and revisit it, iterate on it, and then when you feel like it's ready to surface to somebody else or even yourself to persist and refer back to, then you can just go back and save it whenever you're ready. So yeah, Max, maybe you could tell us.
I'll talk a little bit about availability and pricing. So we're going GA as of today. So we're super excited to give access to everyone. So very much think that the future is agentic and AI. So we want for all of our customer prospect like free user to have a way to try it today. So for everyone here, you should be able to switch it on and try it against your data today. Everyone is provided a bundle, a token, but there is a ceiling. So want to make sure that everyone can POC. But if you want more tokens for a POC, just reach out. We can give you bigger bundles of tokens for free user. If you're out of your trial and you want to trial it, we can kick off a new trial for you. So just reach out. We're happy to do that. In terms of after you do your trial, so if you do want the AI features, we're still figuring out pricing and packaging. I think the market as a whole is still figuring out pricing and packaging. But a few things I can say is that we're going to have AI-enabled seats. We want for probably every seat to become an AI-enabled seats. And there's going to be possibly a reasonable surcharge for those seats. And the other point, like one thing we know and decided is that we want to provide market aligned token pricing. So we don't really want to do margin on tokens. So the idea there is that you can either buy tokens through us, or you can bring your own key. And I believe the next slide is about this: bring your own API key.
Yeah, but before I switch, this QR code here is basically the magic button. If you want to know more about pricing, or we don't get to your questions in the Q&A tab during this call, by all means reach out. We'd love to talk to you and have you involved in both the roadmap and the testing of this feature that now is rolled out to everybody. All right, so BYOK, in case you haven't seen that acronym, is bring your own key, and also a little bit of bring your own LLM agent to this. So right now we're using OpenRouter, which is kind of a leading service platform for kind of abstracting token provisioning, and you can go and buy credits through that service, and it'll give you tokens to use on any LLM model, and you can use different ones. So right now we're aligned on OpenRouter, but if you want to use something else, we can figure that out. We're flexible, and it will enable you to pick your model. Right now we're in the process, as we roll this thing out, of figuring out through all of our evals which ones work the best. We have a little list of the best ones that have been successful for our internal team, but we're still in the process of testing at a wider scale now that you're all invited in. So if you want to try something specific, let us know and we can enable it for you. Or we'll be adding to the list of available models to choose from as we roll this thing out further and wider. And if you do want to enable it, it's pretty darn easy, actually. On Preset, in what we call Preset Manager, you've got all the little workspace cards here with the settings menu. So you just pop that open, and then you can flip these little switches. You'll only see the enable MCP one if you are, a paid Preset AI customer. But even if you're in trial mode to use the chatbot as a new account just testing things out, then you can flip this on and get a limited number of tokens to ask. And I just had to drop this disclaimer here that chatbot is indeed preset only. So if you're a superset user, come talk to us. We'd love to speak to you and tell you about all the wonderful virtues of preset and differentiators, including and besides the chatbot offering. And then, yeah, these are some things you'll want to check out if you want to read all about it. Actually, the new website updates just happened minutes ago, so you can come see our fancy new homepage with a little scripted demo of the chatbot, but perhaps more importantly, you can come read the blogs. We've got 2 of them on this blog page right here that will tell you all about the launch, how to access this, and how to enable it, so get ahead of many of those access questions. And then we've also got this second blog that's a deep dive on the engineering side of things that tells you all about how we built it, how it works under the hood. And we'll get ahead of the the nerdier questions if you want to know how the gears turn in this thing. So with all of that, I hope, yeah, again, grab a screenshot. I didn't even have QR codes because the pages weren't live until just now. But
our preset.io/blog should be a top of blog.
Yep, they're the top 2. So yeah, just go to the blog. And we could talk a little bit about what comes next. Did you want to cover this, Max, or should I?
I can cover it. I think we got 2 slides. I'll try to zip through because we had 45 minutes. We're a little bit over and want to have time for Q&A. So we want full tool coverage. So everything that you can do in Preset Superset, you should be able to do through an assistant. We're going to have more customization around access control. So if you want for your agents to do possibly less or more than your user can do, or you want to have a deny list of tools, you'll be able to configure all of this. We probably have embedded customers on the call, so people embed preset chatbot, preset dashboards in their product, but it would be possible to also embed a chatbot and to white label it, right? May kind of give it its own identity. And then we're looking to sprinkle more of these AI features to all across the app, right? So you don't have to necessarily type. So you can think of it like you might have in the data set context, say like profile this data set, which would open AI type workflows. So look forward for that. And then beyond this, on the next slide, so some of the more advanced features that we're looking to push is, one is we feel like there's a lot of magic that happens when you compose multiple MCPs and when you're able to provide extra skills and documentation to access to your agent, right? So if you have extensive data warehouse documentation, data mart documentation, like we want to be able to tap into that. So more integration. I think this goes with the next point underneath, which is essentially supplying your own agent that has access to more things. There's some features around popularity index and kind of trust scores where agents are going to be able to see, get a sense of like which objects are trustworthy and maybe the ones that are more stale, so that the agent can kind of have make more informed decision around trust. But there's so much more coming here. The big message too is, as everyone ramp, like we love to be close to our customers. So like we want to learn and we want to see what you guys want to. So we'll be on the lookout to talk to everyone and decide where we take this thing next.
Yeah, and in case you've got questions about this point around building agents and using them, you'll be getting an invitation in your inbox soon to join us at our next demo, where we show you how we built ours. That's kind of the next chapter in what we're working on, and we're excited to show you that. So stay tuned. And now that brings us to the end of our show. We've got plenty of time till the top of the hour to get ahead of some of these questions. Many of you have asked them and had them answered, but if anyone wants to highlight a few pertinent ones, I'll turn off the screen share and we'll get into it.
There a Q&A panel I can open in Zoom somewhere?
There is. It's under the Zoom.
And then more?
More.
Yeah. Still definitely a lot of questions about context. I'm trying to find a new one.
I think there are some questions about things that you can do in the interface that whether you can do them in the chatbot or not yet, including like saving queries, predictive analytics, filters. So I think Max mentioned it briefly, but I want to reiterate that we're going to be looking to add more tools to both the MCP and the chatbot would be able to access them as well. So hoping to get to a spot where most everything that you can do in the interface that you'd be able to do through the MCP and chatbot as well. And then,
go ahead. But yeah,
no, I was
someone
going to move
pop
on
up
to a
in the
different
Q&A.
one. Go ahead.
The one that I see open in the Q&A now is around like viewers, right? So if you have viewers that can't actually create objects, like what can they do, or how they can leverage the chatbot. So there's an MCP tool that is like preview a chart. That's what we've been using. I think in the demo today, I don't think we saved any chart. So your viewer user should be able to see chart. They won't be able to save them. So their permission model matches their user, right? So there's some tools that they won't see or won't be able to use through the MCP.
I like the question somebody is asking about, if they're not the most SQL savvy person in the whole world, then how does this help them answer their research questions? And, what do they do with that? Do they need a semantic layer behind the scenes? And so I was trying to show it can write SQL very astutely and then create data sets for you, or you can create charts to kind of validate that it found the right thing. And then when you save or explore those charts, you can see the queries that power them right there. So if you want to validate or tweak on that SQL a little bit, you certainly can, or you can continue iterating with the bot. But Yeah, that's the whole idea, is that this really makes it so you don't have to sweat over writing the entirety of a SQL query. You can just have it answer questions for you, whether it returns them as a table or a chart.
There was a question, a Q&A about SQL dialects. So what we found working with dialects is, well, first, the agent knows what dialect, which database connection you're connected to, and it knows which dialect it should speak. And then the later model, the modern models, do very well with various SQL dialects, or at least the ones that we've used and are common. It also, I think, will retry, right? So if it runs SQL that happens to be in the wrong dialect and gets a, I don't know, like a day diff, your function call is not right, the agent will retry seamlessly. So you might see in the reasoning tab like a failure, and then it will recover right away. So we found, modern models are really good at speaking all sorts of dialects.
There's a question about its capability to do joins. I think we're still subject to the same limitation that Superset always has been, that you want to do joins within the same database. If you have a terabyte of data over here and a terabyte over here, you really don't want to join it between two databases, or things are going to go badly. So if you have all your data in different tables in the same database or data warehouse, then you can absolutely join, and the bot is doing a great job at it. So I'm, joining stuff from HubSpot against Google Analytics against whatever for the work I do, just because it all lands in the same warehouse and it goes very smoothly.
There's a little quirk around that. I think currently we haven't exposed the tool to create virtual data sets, which is required to create some charts on top of joins. I think that should be out, within the next week or two. But yeah, so just a little quirk. I believe we expose all the data set discovery, but we don't allow the agent right now or we haven't exposed the tool to create new data set, which will be required for some of these joins to be
Can write
visualized.
and execute the query for you.
Yeah, sure.
It's good at that.
There was an interesting question about predictive analysis. So I did mention in the chat that we do have some charts that have predictive analysis built in that you can turn on. But as far as having an agent be able to predict for you, maybe send you alert, that sounded like a really interesting feature that we might look into. We did have some sort of predictive discussions around what we can add to make it a little spicier.
Yeah, that might be more of an MCP use case too, right? Picture if you're in Claude Code, you connect to the preset MCP. The agent there could use PyTorch and pandas to, run some logistic regression, or like whatever the agent decides to do predictive analytics, push it back as a data set on your database in Superset, and then expose that. That seems more on the super advanced kind of agent encoding side of the house. So through MCP, perhaps, yeah. Yeah, the features that we do have on predictive analytics is some of the chart types in Superset have a predictive analytics kind of section that you can configure, and we use something called Profit that can do essentially like, not logistic regression, but it is able to kind of create data points in the feature with confidence intervals.
See, folks are asking about just a little pricing detail or access detail. If you're a Preset professional customer and you're currently in an enterprise trial, you can flip this thing on. But if your enterprise trial has ended and you want to kick off a new one, then just reach out to the sales team and we'll hook you up. We definitely want to get as many hands on this thing as possible.
All right. Any other questions?
There's a lot of questions. I think we've covered most of them that are.
Or maybe some that were answered maybe in the chat that other people. Oh yeah, I see the answered tab. I don't know if there's any in there we want to resurface for.
There's a new one that just came in that we haven't answered yet. We can answer live. We have hundreds of users that are viewers. All the assets generated in the AI chat will be ephemeral. Is there a way for creator developer to capture newly generated charts on behalf of the viewers to be deployed?
Oh yeah, well, so I kind of covered that, so I think you can think of it as the same way as you would do probably today, which is like the viewer could send a link to a creator and then they could save it and it becomes available to others. Philosophically, we really think that all of our users should be creators. So like we generally like really want to we think it's best to get everyone full power in the tool, so maybe we can help with that.
Right. Well, if anyone didn't get their question answered or answered to their satisfaction, then by all means, just go to preset.io and hit the talk to us button, and we can definitely talk one-on-one and go into any details you want to go into. We'd love to hear your feedback on what we've shared today, and we'd love for you to get your hands on it and try it out and let us know how it goes for you. So yeah, go ahead, take it for a spin. It's out today. Thanks for joining us for the demo. Thanks, Max, for co-presenting, and thanks, Sophie and Elizabeth, for fielding all the questions. Thanks, Amin, for building the darn thing with the rest of the engineering team here at Preset. And thanks everyone for joining us. We'll see you at the next one.
Thank you all. Have a good day.